I believe Secret Wars ends the multiverse, so that whatever they're going to do, they're going to pick and choose what works and what doesn't, and say you're coming in this timeline, and we're starting off fresh, because there is, at least with me, and I think just based on what I'm seeing online, multiverse fatigue. Biggest stories out of San Diego Comic-Con. We're here to buzz through them and give our takes on them. So you're caught up and you get our thoughts. We want to hear your thoughts. Lacey, obviously, first one, Robert Downey Jr. did walk out on stage with a big brand new Avengers logo behind him, flanked in fake Dr. Dooms as he emerged in a different shade of green and revealed to the crowd to one woman screaming, "Robert!" And he picks off his mask, and there's Robert Downey Jr.
There was two people that said, like, one girl yelled it, and then right before that, some guy behind the camera person that I was watching goes, "It's definitely Robert Downey Jr., right?"
I heard someone say Jared Leto.
Someone said Jared Leto, but two people, and then there's some guy so calmly, he's like, Robert Downey Jr. Like, yeah. Of course.
I don't think the Russos did a good enough job. They shouldn't have said as much as they said before he took the mask off.
I think they were delaying to make sure he was ready to go. Because I don't know if you watched, there was someone posted, I had shared it on Twitter, that someone posted the full panel segment when they were all like coming out, all the Legion of Doom people, all the Dooms. And he sneaks in right at the back, and it's so obvious. He's wearing a completely different shade of green. He's like sneaking behind people, and he's doing that Robert Downey Jr. walk that if anybody from that side saw it, they'd be like, what's going on here? Because it was so like, they tried to distract people by the Avengers Doomsday logo up above.
Right.
So that people were looking up, which worked for a lot.
I don't know if any of the comics were ever referred to or called Doomsday, but that's taking a big name from DC. And because Doomsday is the alien character that kills Superman in the comics. It was one of the best-selling Superman comics ever. And for them to just take that and say, no, we're Marvel, we're going to make Doomsday our subtitle. I wonder if James
Man
Gunn
of Steel number 18.
Yeah, well, that's Superman. I'm saying
that's the comic book number 18.
Yeah, so I don't know if Marvel ever had, referred to any of the Dr. Doom stuff as Doomsday or whatever. They might have, but needless to say, I know that as a DC Superman thing, and the fact that Marvel's taken that, I'm like, I wonder if James Gunn's like, damn it, guys.
So there is a Doomsday Man, which is a fictional character appearing in the American comic books published by Marvel. It's primarily an enemy of Carol Danvers, the character that exists within the Marvel's main shared universe as the Marvel Universe. So he's called Doomsday Man. But Avengers Doomsday itself is its own thing.
Yeah. So
it's interesting.
Big reveal. Yeah, no doubt about it. I guess
it was, by the way, I have to give you credit. It was exactly as you said it was. He rolled up on stage, pulled off a mask, surprise, everyone's here. And I literally watched it happen online. And I was like, this is exactly what John said, just a different character.
I didn't think it would, I thought it'd be Tony Stark. But
I mean, technically it is.
It is Tony Stark, but in a different timeline. And now you're getting the similar concerns from people who brought up concerns about Logan. Like we just talked about on our Nerdy and Nice episode about how, well, they brought Logan back. So does that dilute the emotional weight of the movie Logan? Because especially they brought back Laura with X-23, and she has to it's almost like in Terminator 2 or Terminator 3 or whatever, when John Connor sees the Terminator again, and he has to remember it's not the same guy. And it's a little weird because it is going to be Tony Stark, but Tony Stark from a different timeline. And I understand that Secret Wars is likely because in Deadpool, I pointed to
there was a
Secret Wars comic, and I believe Secret Wars ends the multiverse, so that whatever they're going to do, they're going to pick and choose what works and what doesn't, and say you're coming in this timeline, and we're starting off fresh, because there is, at least with me, and I think just based on what I'm seeing online, multiverse fatigue. So it's like, on one hand, we get the immediate reaction, the guttural Robert Downey Jr. is back, and the whole crowd goes bananas.
He
If
won an
you're
Oscar, so he's coming back after that.
Yeah, and he's 60. It's one last time to cash in and do it with Tony Stark. How are we going to do it? We're going to do a different version. But there is fatigue for multiverse, I think. And I think Kevin Feige, he keeps his ear close to the ground. And while he's not doing necessarily what people want him to do from a fan perspective, he has a good read on his audience, and he respects his audience and he appreciates them to the point where he wanted Disney Plus to add a version where you could watch this stuff and see shots they took from comic books and brought to life in live action. That's somebody who is genuinely caring and invested in their audience, in their product. So this is a pivot, though, if we're being honest. The Jonathan Majors thing was supposed to be the Kang
I think
Dynasty.
it was mostly that. I think it was, hey, we need to do something big to get people to forget about Jonathan Majors. So they brought back the one guy that could have snapped Jonathan Majors out of existence, which is Tony Stark.
Yeah, I think he still would have come back even if nothing happened with
And that's
Jonathan
totally
Majors. But
and that's
not
fine
like
because
this, I don't think.
yes, as soon as we found out that the multiverse was a thing with Spider-Man and they were bringing all the Spider-Man people back, I think now you're hearing oh yeah, Tony would come back. Oh yeah, Scarlet would come back. Oh yeah, Chris Evans would come back. All these
Yeah.
people would come back
Yeah.
because first of all, payday. Get that
Payday.
money.
Yep. Like Harrison Ford says, someone asked him, that was another thing revealed.
I
Harrison
sent
Ford,
it to you. Yeah, he was
Red
at the
Hulk,
Captain America Brave New World panel. Yeah.
and he did the
Which is part of
hulking
the
out
Marvel
stuff,
thing.
and there's
Yeah.
stills of him doing it, and people are memeing the hell out of it, and they should. And someone asked him, like, did you do motion capture? How'd you get into this Red Hulk mode? And he's like, I got paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
To do
Might be
something stupid.
And then he
Yeah.
also said he would have had a mustache if they asked him to, but nobody asked him to get a mustache.
Oh, interesting. I figured he said, because you and I joked, like, when we were watching the trailer, he's probably like,
"No."
I'm not having an effing mustache.
No, I would assume maybe he didn't say anything, but like maybe his agent was like, "Look, he'll never get a mustache. He's not going to do that."
I mean,
And so they were like, "Okay, he doesn't have to." And they never asked him because he openly said, he's like, "They never asked me to have a mustache. I just didn't have one."
but it's like that, like Harrison Ford, one of the most iconic actors, legendary actors of all time, kind of getting lost in how much Marvel gave this weekend. Because if it was just Harrison Ford at a Star Wars thing, people would have went bananas. But then you
I think
have
it's to the movie though, because he's in Brave New World, and I don't think people are super pumped about that movie.
that could be. I know there's a lot of Chris Evans diehards who, they're not sure if they want to start over with a new Captain America, but we'll see what Anthony Mackie brings. It was definitely a cool trailer for me. But then you have the new Fantastic Four, which is attempt number 3. Marvel's taken their latest crack at it here. They seem to be doing what Marvel does best, which is let's get as much talent as we possibly can in this. Because I just saw on Twitter, and I don't know if this was something that I just didn't know, Michael Giacchino doing the music for the Fantastic Four,
which is 1960s, 1961.
Oh my god, he's instantly gonna make that movie 25% better.
Well, he's gonna do Incredibles basically. just
Oh,
Marvelize it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
So it's Fantastic Four First Steps. They brought in the flying car in the panel. They gave out souvenir maps, which sounds lame, but it is one of the coolest giveaways I've ever seen. It's a folding pamphlet map of what New York looks like in their timeline. And it has like all their cool, like mid-century modern graphics, like very like old school Disney.
That's cool.
Yeah, it looked really, really awesome. But yeah, Pedro was there, Vanessa was there, Ebon Moss Bachrach, is that how you say his name?
Bachrach, yeah.
Bachrach. Joseph Quinn was there. They were all there. They look like they're having a good time. They're starting filming this coming week.
Yep.
In London, so they took a break to do that. They also showed some pictures and footage of Galactus looking into the window.
Yes. And some drone stuff too, right?
Yeah, they did a big drone thing outside on Friday night to tease the panel. It was insane. It was one of the coolest drone shows I've ever seen. So they did Deadpool and Wolverine, and then they did like Galactus coming over the convention center, which then turned into the Fantastic Four logo with like sparklers and all this other stuff. I I have to say they also did Thunderbolts. I don't want to ignore that either, which
Right.
they brought the whole cast out, including Florence Pugh, and they they definitely loaded this panel up. We still didn't hear about not Deadpool. We still didn't hear about Daredevil, which is surprising because
Right.
that's coming out soon.
D23 probably.
Probably because from what Marvel has said today after San Diego Comic-Con is that they plan to give their full slate of what's next along with Pixar and Star Wars at D23. They're
So
going
a
to
lot
say
of their Disney
everything that's
Plus
coming.
stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So they're saying the map that Kevin likes to put up, he's saving it for D23, which is not surprising. Disney likes to keep those plans to
It's
themselves.
just crazy how Marvel just absolutely dominated this entire weekend to the point where I wonder if other studios were like, we're not putting that much money into being at this convention because no one's going to remember what we did.
I didn't see anything else except Alien Romulus, which is also Disney. They gave out these face masks that look like the face huggers and stuff, and they had like the animatronic face hugger in the panel.
Yep.
And then of course Deadpool did a screening, which spoiled the movie for me partially because they announced who was at the screening, and I saw one of the names in advance. I saw Jennifer Garner was going to be in the movie.
Yes.
Which, come on, press, get it together. Why would you do that on the night the movie's coming out?
Was not happy
Yeah,
about that.
I would say the big takeaways for me this past weekend with everything that was announced, and like you said, Harrison Ford was just kind of ignored a little bit besides the memeable photos. I think that movie, like, people aren't as excited because, again, they're picking and choosing what they want to be pumped for. And I would say I'm excited the most for Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go that far because Fantastic Four has done 2 bad takes, and this one is clearly set up to be great.
I just like the vibes that it's going with, the whole
I agree.
1960s vibes and everything. I
I
think
bet
it's
it's gonna be
fresh,
good.
it's different. And the fact that they're doing that back-to-back weekends, they're doing Fantastic Four, and then the following weekend in 2026 is The Mandalorian and Grogu. Like, Pedro Pascal is gonna rule May
Well, it makes me
2026.
nervous as a Star Wars fan.
It's Solo all over again.
Yeah, and the irony there is you have the return of Robert Downey Jr.
Sorry, not Fantastic Four. I misspoke. Avengers is the first. I
Avengers
misspoke.
Doomsday.
So I was
Yeah.
Fantastic Four is coming out next year, 2025.
July, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what's going up against the Mandalorian and Grogu is Avengers Doomsday, and you have the return of Robert Downey Jr. going against the guy who pushed for him to be cast as Tony Stark directing the Star Wars movie. Head to head. Star Wars is the greatest movie franchise of all time. It is my favorite. I want Star Wars to be better than Marvel. I don't think there's a chance Marvel is worried about this and they aren't moving.
Disney's not moving.
Disney might be forced to move Mando. But we'll see. It's so crazy how much Marvel just gave us, and then they're like, oh, and just wait for D23. It's like, holy cow, even with they reeled in the amount that they're making, they're still just pummeling everybody, and it's absolutely nuts. So the only other thing I took away from San Diego Comic-Con was Dexter, which I knew that they were doing a prequel series. I did not know that Michael C. Hall was going to be doing the voice of like sort of the narration. But they're also bringing him back, and they're doing Dexter Resurrection, and they won't explain how he survived. But there's more Dexter coming, and I'm excited about that because I really have always enjoyed that show. So that was the only other thing I was like hyped on that came out, because I feel like Marvel just bludgeoned everybody. And I know there was other things
They
here and
always
there, but
do.
I
always do.
nothing else that really came out. I mean, Star Wars was there, and they had the costumes for the Acolyte, and they did the publishing panel, and they talked about that there's some Acolyte books coming out. But that was really it from the Star Wars perspective. We'll talk more about that on TRB for sure. DC, very quiet. They did reveal the intro for the new DC universe, which has, again, James Gunn's going for this retro Americana aesthetic.
They announced the logo, the new logo that he chose for the
and it's like
studio.
very old school DC. So James Gunn's doing this sort of back to basics thing. So we'll see what DC has to say when things get closer for them. But right now, it's still Marvel, and I'm gonna eat my words because I've been saying I feel like Marvel peaked, and they were even jokes about that in Deadpool, like that maybe Marvel lost their way a little bit, but by all accounts, it looks like they're back because they just crushed San Diego Comic-Con to the point where nothing else that mattered. Yeah, so
it's funny you say all that about like Marvel peaking and how DC's handling and they're very quiet. I think if I was to come at this from a marketing perspective of DC versus Marvel, you're not going to beat Marvel at the over the top craziness of all this stuff, who they have, celebrities, all these things. You're going to have to beat them at story and that, hey, we're not complicated over here.
yeah,
Marvel, they have 35 movies. You have to remember everything and every timeline and all the multiverse and all this other stuff. Hey, we got Superman over here. Come watch a Superman movie. And I feel like that's what they're doing, even with the logo. They're not doing the flashes of all the comic books and the Marvel Studios and all the characters and which one's your
yeah,
favorite.
right.
They're saying, DC, we got Superman. Come over here to see Superman.
They're not going to
We're
do what
going,
they did with the Flash, where they like get a
yeah,
awful CG version of Christopher Reeve for 3 seconds and say like we have multi Superman. Like,
no, no, no,
don't
no.
DC like they tried to do.
That was before James Gunn, right? Like, he came in right
Yes,
below right
yeah,
after that, yeah.
yes, yeah.
S yeah.
DC like the on a giant board when you walk into the DC building, because James Gunn is now CEO also of DC,
Mhm.
has to like somewhere behind the scenes in big letters say like, don't try to be Marvel. And like to your point,
Don't overcomplicate it. That's
yeah,
what they're gonna
be a
say.
different
That's
option. Yeah,
James Gunn tells stories that are straightforward and not hard to understand,
yeah,
and you and I both agree that there were moments in Deadpool, despite loving Deadpool and Wolverine,
yeah.
that you and I were like, "So wait, is this? Is that? When
Oh,
did this happen?"
oh
It was
yeah,
just a little hard to follow, and that's coming from people like us that are in this pop culture world on a regular basis.
yeah,
Um, so I think that you're going to see DC Comics and the DC Universe stuff, which is DC Studios is what they're calling it.
yeah,
I think you're going to see that those stories from James Gunn be very straightforward and not become this connected crazy web of timelines like this, like Marvel's doing. It's going to be one cohesive story. You're going to
yeah,
know exactly where this started, where it's going, where it goes next. And
yeah.
not only that, they're going to bring it back to the basics of, hey, remember that story you liked when you were little, or remember that comic book you fell in love with? That's what this is.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be Superman is as good as it's good and pure as you remember Superman being.
Yeah.
Batman is going to be Batman, and there's going to be one universe, and all these people are going to be in it, and you're going to be able to understand what takes place when. I agree with you. I think you nailed that. I think DC is going to go with a simplistic. Don't try to reinvent these classics, because you do still, in my opinion, have the two biggest comic book superheroes of all time. Use them the way they should be used, the way people know how to use them, and I think that's the way to go for DC. But in closing, San Diego Comic Con anyway, Marvel's still the king. Nobody's close to them, and it's almost at the point where it's like they are like the NFL in sports, like not they are unstoppable right now. So
Right now, wait till next year.
yeah, we'll see. Yeah,
We'll
any
see.
other things that catch your eye from San Diego Comic Con, or is it just basically
I
Marvel crushed everybody?
It is the Marvel show from marketing and everything else. Like, the whole drone show was insane. I am interested to see where things are next year, because I think a lot of stuff that got delayed from the strikes and then just kind of reworked after COVID and everything is really hitting next year in 2025.
Yeah.
And we're going to be pummeled with pop culture, movies, superhero stuff, not superhero, but like kind of franchises. They're doing a new Hunger Games movie. I think next year's going to be insane, and we might have to make the trip out for San Diego next time.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I mean, we are going to Japan, but
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yep. Mhm.
we'll see. We'll see if we go to
We'll
San
see.
Diego. I remember we were in Celebration London, and some of our friends were like, "Come to Dragon Con next year," and we're like, "Oh yeah, there's no celebration, sure." And then like we're like, "No, we're not going to Dragon Con." But maybe it's just
It's all time.
It's also, yeah, it's a lot. But anyway,
It is a lot.
those are our thoughts on San Diego Comic-Con. Let us know what you think. Were you there? You know, were you in Hall H? We want to hear your story. Did you lose your hearing? Did the place go as loud as it seemed to be on camera? And then a big thank you also to Gary, Sneaky Zebra, who attended a
Thank you, Gary.
Hasbro breakfast on our behalf. So thank you very much, man. Appreciate that. Hope
Yeah,
you had fun at
appreciate
San
it.
Diego Comic-Con. I hope everyone, that's the other thing. Hope everyone just had a really good time at San Diego Comic-Con. That's the ultimate.
Yeah, yeah. Send us your pictures. I want to see them.
Yeah. And chat us up about everything else that you're nerding on. But until then, see you around, kids.